My name doesn't matter. What matters is that one night, 3 years ago, I was broken. Not the kind of breaking you see coming. That's almost a privilege. No, it was the kind of breaking that devours you from the inside while you keep walking, smiling, pretending you're still a man. I had lost everything to gambling. My lands, my honor, the trust of my people. All I had left was a hardened body and an even more hardened mind. But what good is a man with nothing to live for? I found work as a mercenary. I spent years getting involved in conflicts that weren't mine, earning money I could never spend because there was nothing I wanted to buy. Death followed me like a loyal dog, but it didn't have the kindness to come for me. It always arrived too late. I survived. That was the worst part, that I always survived. Until one day, while lurking in the taverns of a port city, I heard talk of Helheim. It's not a place that appears on maps. If you look for it, you won't find it. But if you have enough desperation running through your veins, if you've reached the point where death no longer scares you because life no longer matters, then Helheim comes for you. That's what happened to me. An old man, with scars that looked like stories of forgotten wars, approached me while I drank alone in the darkest corner of the bar. He didn't ask permission to sit. He simply dropped into the chair across from me and looked at me as if he could see all the rot bubbling beneath my skin. "We need a defender," he said. His voice was like the sound of ice cracking. "For the village of Helheim, someone who doesn't fear death, someone who has nothing to lose." I looked him straight in the eyes. "How much does it pay?" The old man smiled. It wasn't a kind smile. It was the smile of someone who knows exactly what price a broken life has. "Everything you need, food, shelter, gold coins, and something more important than all of that, a purpose." Purpose. The word hit like a fist. Years without feeling like I had a reason to wake up. Years walking like a ghost inside my own body. And here was this stranger offering me that on a platter. "What's the job?" I asked. "Defend the village," he said, "against everything that comes, against anyone who tries to enter, against anyone who tries to leave. Your job is to be the wall between Helheim and the rest of the world." "And if I try to leave?" The old man didn't respond. He just tilted his head slightly, with the suggestion of a smile on his lips. That silence was more terrifying than any threat could have been. It was at that moment when I should have gotten up and left. I should have walked out of that tavern, out of that city, out of everything that had begun that cursed night. But I didn't, because the coward in me, and there is one in all of us, believe me, it's just that some managed to hide it better, needed to believe I could get redemption. Needed to believe that by doing an important job, protecting myself with the weight of an impossible responsibility, I could stop being what I had been. So I said yes. The journey to Helheim took 3 days. We traveled through a path that seemed to disappear into nothing. The forest became denser, the trees more gnarled, the shadows deeper. With each step we took, the air grew colder. It wasn't just physical cold, though it was that too. It was cold in the soul, as if each breath I took was sucking the warmth from my body, the hope from my mind. My guide, the old man, didn't speak throughout the journey. He just walked. His thin figure moved through the forest as if he had known it forever. Or perhaps as if the forest knew him. There's a difference. When we arrived, Helheim hit me like a wall. The village was built at the bottom of a deep valley, surrounded by black cliffs that rose like the teeth of some colossal animal. The houses were structures of dark wood, with thatched roofs that hung like the heads of hanged men. Gray smoke rose from the chimneys, but there was something strange about that smoke. It had a color I couldn't define. It wasn't white, it wasn't black. It was something in between, as if it carried the ghost of what had been burned in the flames. The inhabitants of Helheim came out to greet me. They were ordinary people, men and women, young and old. But there was something in their eyes that wasn't ordinary. There was an absence, as if someone had reached inside their heads and extracted the parts of themselves that made them, well, alive. The old man took me to the center of the village, where a structure larger than the others stood. It was a meeting hall, I assumed, or a communal hall, the place where important decisions were made. "This is Knut," the old man said, pointing to a burly man with a grey beard that fell to his chest. "The leader of Helheim. He'll explain the job." Knut extended a hand to me. His grip was like a bear trap, strong, cold. Definitely not a man who wanted to make friends. "Welcome, Defender," he said. His voice was deep, as if it came from the bottom of a grave. "Here in Helheim, we live under a code, an ancient code, a code that has allowed us to exist in peace for generations." "What code?" I asked. "The code of absolute loyalty," he responded. "Everyone here has made an oath. We will never abandon this village. We will never betray the secrets of Helheim, and never, under any circumstances, will we reveal what happens here to the outside world." It seemed strange to me. Why would a small village in the middle of nowhere need such deep secrets? What could be so important that it would require such a level of confidentiality? But I didn't ask. I had a job. I was supposed to defend the village. That was all I needed to know. What city are you watching this from? Tell me in the comments. If this story is captivating you, give it a like and subscribe to the channel so we can keep discovering the darkest secrets of Helheim. This is just the beginning. The first few days were quiet. Too quiet. They installed me in a small cabin on the perimeter of the village, a strategic position from which I could see anything approaching. The work consisted mainly of patrolling, walking along the edges of the village, watching the entry and exit paths, making sure nothing and no one penetrated without authorization. The people of Helheim were kind, not exactly friendly. That word didn't exist in Helheim. But they were civil. They offered me food. They spoke to me when they crossed paths with me. They treated me as if I were one of them. It was on the 5th day when the special food arrived. An older woman, with hair white as snow and eyes that seemed to have no bottom, came to my cabin. She carried a covered plate. She placed the food on my rustic wooden table without saying a word. "What is this?" I asked. "A welcome from Knut," she responded. "It's a special honor. It means he trusts you, that he really trusts you." I lifted the lid off the plate. What I saw was a portion of meat, but it wasn't like any meat I had eaten before. The color was strange. There were golden veins running through the red meat. The texture was different, more fibrous, more compact. "What kind of meat is this?" I asked. The woman smiled. It was a cold smile, crystalline, as if she had a secret she wanted to share but knew she should keep. "Meat from the past," she said. "Meat from those who forgot their oaths." She left before I could ask what that meant. I spent that night without eating. The plate remained on the table, looking at me with dark reproach. In the morning, when the woman returned to collect it, I saw that it was empty. She smiled again. That smile was the most chilling thing I had seen in years. "Good boy," she said. "You needed the strength. The work is hard here in Helheim." That was the beginning. Every day, more food. Each meal, more portions of that strange meat with its golden veins and indefinable texture. I started to notice that after eating, I felt different. My body became stronger. My vision became sharper. My energy multiplied. It was as if with each bite, I absorbed not only the nutrition from the meat, but something more. Something essential. Something that had been missing. And then I started hearing the stories. It was an old man during a night patrol who told me the first one. He approached me near the trees at the edge of the village. "You're new," he said. It wasn't a question. Yes, I responded. Then you don't know, he continued. You don't know who you really are, or rather, you don't know what you've become. What do you mean? I asked, feeling uncomfortable. The old man looked back toward the village. His eyes gleamed under the moonlight. The meat you eat, he said slowly, doesn't come from animals, doesn't come from other villages. It comes from here. From Helheim. I felt my stomach rising toward my throat. That's not possible, I said. There aren't enough people. There would be. Would be what? The old man interrupted. Would be a whole, disappearances. But there aren't any, are there? Because the people who disappear never really got to be here, never got to live here. Only their remains, let's say, stay behind. What are you talking about? I demanded. The old man slowly raised his hand. On the palm, I saw a long scar that ran from his wrist to his elbow. It looked old, healed years ago. A long time ago, he said. I tried to leave. I made the same oath you made. But after years, life in Helheim became unbearable. I decided I'd rather die on the road than keep living here. So one night, I escaped. What happened? I asked. They hunted me, he said simply, like I was a wild animal. They found me in the forest, halfway to freedom. And when they brought me back... He looked at his scar. Knut himself executed the punishment. What punishment? I asked, though part of me already knew. They opened me up, he said. Here, at this wrist, and they let my blood drip, drop by drop, while Knut explained what would happen. My body would join the others in the vault beneath the village, the vault where we keep all those who have tried to escape, and my flesh, the flesh that built my betrayal, would be used to feed the defender, to keep him strong, to keep him loyal. The old man lowered his hand. I only survived because Knut wanted me to survive. He wanted a living reminder, a warning, and that's exactly what I am. Every day I see the people of Helheim eating, smiling, pretending everything is normal. I remember they're eating people, that I myself have eaten people, that I've probably already eaten the flesh of people I knew, people who were my friends. He left before I could respond. That night I didn't eat. I didn't eat the next night either. But hunger consumed me, not just hunger for food. It was a different hunger, a hunger that grew in my bones, that screamed from somewhere deep inside me. And every night, Knut sent the woman with the food. Every night I said no. Every night, my body begged me to say yes. The third night without eating, I almost went crazy. I felt as if something was dying inside me. My strength was disappearing. My vision was darkening. My mind was becoming chaos. It was as if the meat I had eaten wasn't simply food, but had become part of me. As if I had accepted something into my body that now refused to leave. So I ate. I tried to convince myself it was just meat, that I didn't know whose it was, that it could be from anywhere. But I knew it was a lie. I knew exactly what it was about. And what was worse, I knew it felt good. It was as if all the depression I had carried with me for years had lifted. As if someone had sucked the darkness from my soul and replaced it with something clear, something pure, something vengeful. Tell me your theory. Why can the defender feel this? Is there something magical in Helheim? Or is it simply that the suffering of others feeds the evil that we all carry inside? Comment below. I started observing the people of Helheim differently after that. I saw how they behaved, how they looked at each other. I saw the barely contained fear beneath their smiles. I saw how their eyes constantly turned toward the village gate, as if part of them was always looking for an escape route. And I understood. Knut hadn't brought me here just to be the defender of the village. He had brought all of us to be part of his machine, He was the true defender. The entire village was the true army, and the system he had built was perfect. Traitors were eliminated, bodies were preserved, food was abundant. The cycle continued. One night, I ran into Knut on the road. "How is Helheim treating you?" he asked. His voice was casual, but his eyes were sharp as blades. "Well," I responded. "Eating well?" That was a test. We both knew it. "Yes," I said. "The food is excellent." Knut smiled. It wasn't a kind smile. "I've been watching you," he said. "You're interesting. Most offenders we bring here don't last more than a few months. They go crazy. Some try to escape. Others simply hang themselves from the beams of their cabin. But you have something different." "What?" I asked. "Appetite," he responded. "True appetite. Not just for food, but for power. I've seen how you change. Every day you become stronger. Every day your eyes have more clarity. It's as if the true nature of Helheim is finally coming to the surface." "And if so," I said carefully, "what happens then?" "Then," Knut responded, "you have a future here, a real future. Because Helheim needs leaders. It needs men who understand that sacrifice is the price of survival. Men who can make difficult decisions. Men who can live with the weight of those decisions." He continued walking, but not before touching my shoulder. His hand was like the touch of the dead. That night, I went to the vault. I knew where it was. I had discovered its location days ago during my patrols. It was beneath Knut's house, accessible through a hidden door in the floorboards. What I saw in that vault changed me. There were bodies, many bodies in different states of decomposition, some fresh, others were just bones. Some looked like they had been there for decades. All were placed on wooden shelves, organized as if they were inventory in a store. But what was truly disturbing was that I recognized some of them. There was a young man who had arrived in Helheim a month before me. His name was Eric. One day he simply ceased to be. No one mentioned his name again. No one seemed to remember him. And here he was on a shelf, with a hole in his chest where his heart used to be. There was a woman I had seen with a small child. Both disappeared after 2 weeks. Here they were, mother and son, side by side, their bodies reclined as if they were sleeping. There was an old carpenter who built houses. He disappeared last summer. Here he was, perfectly preserved, his hands still calloused from work he would never finish. And in the corner of the vault, on a stone table, was something that made me pause. It was a book, or rather, a rolled scroll. I took it with trembling fingers. "The Coward's Contract" was written on the first page, in ancient letters that seemed to have been made with blood. I began to read. The document described the true purpose of Helheim. It wasn't simply a village, it was an experiment that dated back centuries. An experiment conducted by a group of ancient shamans and witches seeking to prolong their lives indefinitely. They had discovered a formula. If they could get people to commit an act of betrayal by consuming the flesh of others, if they could make each member of the village part of this conspiracy, then the collective guilt would create a magical bond. A bond that would keep them together. A bond that would protect them from death. The defenders were the centerpiece of the plan. The defenders were the cornerstone that made everything work, because a defender by nature was in a position of power over everyone else. A defender was physically capable of stopping any insurrection, any escape attempt. A defender was someone people would fear. And if that defender was also part of the flesh cycle, if he also consumed the flesh of others, then no one could escape. Because even if they managed to leave the village, they would carry the secret with them. The guilt would haunt them. It would gnaw at their soul. That was the contract. Accepting the position of defender was accepting to become part of the machine. It was accepting that everyone in Helheim was condemned to an eternity of shared guilt. I looked up from the document and saw Knut standing at the entrance to the vault. "So, you discovered the truth," he said. "How quick you are. Most defenders don't make it to the vault for more than a year." "Why?" I asked. "Why show this?" "Because you need to understand what you are," he responded. "You need to understand that the contract you signed isn't just a job, it's a transformation. Every bite you eat brings you closer to us. Every day you spend here, you become more part of the system. And if I refuse?" Knut approached me. His shadow was like a beast of its own. "Then you become inventory," he said simply. "Your body joins all these others, and the next defender we bring will eat your flesh." And that's how it works. Year after year, generation after generation. Helheim is eternal because the system renews itself. Those who rebel become food. Those who obey become part of eternity. "This is madness," I said. "Perhaps," Knut responded, "but it's madness that works. We've been here for 800 years. 800 years without true war, without true hunger, without true disease. 800 years of life because we understand that the price of that is the death of a few." I ran out of the vault, but I didn't go toward the exit. I didn't try to escape, because I knew deep in my being that I couldn't. The flesh I had consumed had done something to me. It had altered something fundamental in my physiology. I felt connected to Helheim in a way I couldn't explain. It was as if the cables that tied me to my previous life had been cut, and the only cables I had left were those that connected me to this cursed village. I spent the next few months in a state of denial. I did my job. I patrolled the perimeters. I watched the paths. I stopped 2 people who tried to escape. I didn't know what would happen to them then. I didn't want to know. I simply returned them to the village and left. I avoided thinking about where they would end up. I avoided thinking about who would end up eating their flesh. But the truth is, I thought about it constantly. It obsessed me. Every night in my cabin, I saw their faces. The faces of the people I had returned, and afterwards I saw their bodies. I saw their flesh being cut. I saw that flesh on a plate. I saw my own mouth opening to eat it, and I saw something worse. I saw that I cared, that the food was still excellent, that my body kept getting stronger, that every day I felt more alive than I had been in my entire previous life. One night, a woman came to my cabin. It wasn't the old woman who brought me food. It was a young woman. She was about 30 years old with black hair and eyes that had an intelligence I rarely saw in Helheim. "My name is Solveig," she said. "I wanted to meet you." "Why?" I asked suspiciously. "Because you're special," she responded. "Because you understand. Because you're not crazy like some of the other defenders who have come before." "What do you want?" Solveig sat down without asking permission. "I want to know if you have doubts," she said. "Because if you have doubts, if there's a part of you that resists Helheim, then I could help you." "Help me?" I asked. "How?" "Escape," she said simply. "We're reaching the climax of this story. Before continuing, I need to know, what city are you watching this from? Tell me in the comments. And if this story is affecting you, if it's pulling you into the crime and desperation, share this with someone. Subscribe to the channel, give it a like. Because stories like this don't get told if you don't help us grow. I stood up from my chair. "I can't escape," I said. "And neither can you. We're trapped." "Yes," Solveig responded. "But there are different types of entrapment. There's the entrapment of the body, and there's the entrapment of the spirit. Your body may be here. Your body may never be able to leave, but your spirit could be free." "How?" Solveig moved closer. Her voice became a whisper. "There's a way to break the cycle," she said. "A way to break the contract. There's a formula the ancient shamans used, a formula that can nullify the magic that keeps Helheim together." What is it? Purification by fire, she said. If you burn the vault, if you burn all the bodies, if you burn the contract scroll, the magic breaks. Helheim will collapse. The village will be free. And us? I asked. We'll die, Solveig said. We'll all die. Because the magic that has kept us alive has also killed us. When it breaks, all of us will crumble, all except Knut. Why? I asked. Because he's the architect, she responded. Because his hands are in all the connections. If there's a great sacrifice, if there's enough death, he might survive. He could find another village, another group of desperate people, and start again. Solveig took my hand. But before that, she said, we can ensure that his next experiment doesn't begin. We can ensure that his next village is never built. We can give the others, all the others, the chance to die free instead of living as slaves. That night the plan began. Solveig showed me where the flammable supplies were. They were hidden in a small cabin in the forest surrounding Helheim. I imagined they had been left there on purpose, as if someone at some point in the past had planned exactly what Solveig and I were planning now. When? I asked. Tonight, Solveig said. When everyone is asleep. But something stopped me. Something inside me raised a red flag, a warning. Why are you telling me this? I asked. Why do you trust me? Solveig smiled. It was a sad smile. Because I have no choice, she said. Because if I don't break the cycle now, tomorrow I'll be feeding the fire in another way. And the day after I'll do it again. And so once more I will have failed. And so over and over until finally it's me on the vault shelf. We spent the next few hours preparing. Solveig showed me how to reach the vault without being seen. She showed me where to place the fire to ensure the entire structure would collapse. She showed me how to reach Knut before he could escape. Are we going to kill him? I asked. If possible, Solveig said. But if not, at least we'll slow him down. We'll give people time to escape. When the village clock struck midnight, we moved. The village slept. Helheim always slept deeply. It was as if everyone was under a spell that kept them unconscious during the nights. Maybe they were. Maybe the magic that kept the village together also kept everyone in a state of magical sleep during the dark hours. We ran toward Knut's house. The front door was locked, but Solveig had a key. It seems that in Helheim, everyone had access everywhere. Everyone had the tools to rebel. Everyone had the capacity to break the system, but no one did. Because the psychological machinery of the contract was perfect. Inside, we went down to the vault. The smell hit first, the smell of death, the smell of decomposing bodies, the smell of centuries of human sacrifice. It was so strong, it almost made me vomit. But Solveig simply breathed through her mouth and kept going. We placed the combustibles around the vault, around the shelves, around the bodies that lay there like merchandise, around the scroll, the contract. When we finished, Solveig handed me a torch. The honor is yours, she said. You're the defender. It's appropriate that you're the one to light the fire. I looked at the torch in my hand. I saw the flickering flame at the tip. I saw how the light danced in Solveig's eyes. I saw how the shadow of each body in the vault seemed to come to life. If I do this, I said, there's no going back. No, Solveig responded, but there's no going back anyway. The only change is that this time we choose the path. I threw the torch. The fire ignited as if it had been waiting for that its entire eternity. The flame jumped from one shelf to another, consuming bodies, consuming the past, consuming the evidence of 800 years of carefully executed crime. Solveig and I ran upstairs. Already the fire could be heard roaring beneath us. Already the beams of Knut's house were beginning to creak. Already the smoke was beginning to seep upward through the floorboards. In the main room, we found Knut. He was standing watching the black smoke rising from the floor. His face was a mask of rage and horror. But something else too. Something it took me a moment to recognize as fear. Knut felt fear. "What have you done?" he demanded, turning toward us. "Broken your contract," I said. Knut raised his hand. When he did, I felt something change in my body. It was as if someone had opened a door inside me, as if all the food I had consumed, all the meat, all the blood, all the evil of Helheim had been waiting for that moment to come out. My body began to change, my muscles twisted, my skin hardened. My vision turned red. I could hear my bones breaking and reforming, becoming stronger, denser, more lethal. "You're part of us," Knut shouted. "You're our defender. You can't betray us." And he was right. That was the terrible thing. He was right. Because the flesh I had consumed had changed me irrevocably. The contract I had accepted had woven its fingers through every cell of my body. I couldn't escape myself. I couldn't escape what I had become. But what Knut didn't understand was that I no longer cared. Because what I had become no longer had anything to lose, no longer feared death, no longer feared sacrifice. Because I had already sacrificed everything I was. I attacked. It was brutal, it was quick, it was inevitable. My new body, my enhanced body, my monstrous body, was exactly what it had been designed to be. A weapon. A perfect weapon to defend Helheim. Except this time, I was defending its destruction. Knut tried to resist, but he had no chance. It was as if he was fighting against the very concept of inevitability. His body broke under my fury. His blood, when it finally came out, wasn't red. It was black. It was black as the deepest night, black as the pit from which all evil had come. When I finished, the house was completely in flames. Solveig grabbed my arm. "We have to get out," she shouted over the roar of the fire. We went out to the street. Helheim was waking up. The people of the village were coming out of their houses, watching the fire consuming Knut's house, watching the vault collapse, watching 800 years of secrets being reduced to ash. And something strange happened. They began to crumble. Not physically, at least not at first, but mentally, spiritually. It was as if, when the magic of the contract had broken, something fundamental in the structure of their beings had given way. I saw them fall. I saw them cry. I saw them remember, for the first time in years, who they had been before coming to Helheim. Many people died that night, some in the fire. Others simply crumbled to the ground, seemingly for no reason, as if their bodies finally understood there was no longer any reason to continue living. I, however, didn't die. I remained at the edge of the village, watching everything burn, watching the evidence of everything that had happened for 800 years be consumed by flames, watching my own past be cremated, along with everything else. When the fire finally went out, when the ashes settled, when silence descended over what remained of Helheim, I looked for Solveig. She wasn't there. I found her near the trees. Her eyes were open, looking toward the sky, but she no longer saw anything. The transformation I had undergone when I burned the contract, the transformation that had turned my body into a weapon, had also transformed her. She had been the one who had lit the fire with me. She had been the one closest to the magic when it had broken, and the magic had consumed her. I spent the next night and the next walking among the remains of Helheim. I discovered that the survivors didn't want to leave. They wanted to stay. They wanted to rebuild what had been destroyed, but in a different way. Without Knut, without the contract, without the flesh. So I stayed and helped them. We worked together for months, years, really. Little by little, the village was rebuilt. But something had fundamentally changed. Fear no longer dominated people's hearts. Guilt no longer poisoned the air. And I remained as defender. But this time my duties were different. This time, I defended the village against the evil that still existed in the world. I defended Helheim against those who wanted to resurrect what had been destroyed. Because I discovered that Knut wasn't the only one who practiced ancient magic. There were others. There were more villages. There were more contracts. And although I died years ago, although my body began to fail decades ago under the weight of magical transformations, although most of me is rotten from the inside, from the flesh I consumed, I'm still here. I'm still the defender. And I still remember every night, in the moments before falling into a dreamless sleep, the taste of that first meal. The taste of the flesh of traitors. The taste that turned me into what I am. That's how I came to understand a fundamental truth about the nature of evil. It's not something that happens suddenly. It's not something that hits you like lightning. It's something that enters gradually. It's something you eat little by little. It's something that, with each bite, turns you into a slightly different version of yourself. Until one day, you wake up and discover you're no longer who you thought you were. You discover you're exactly what you feared being. You discover you're the coward, the one who accepted the contract without understanding its true terms, the one who ate the flesh without asking where it came from, the one who closed his eyes while others suffered. And although I finally broke the cycle, although I finally tried to do the right thing, none of that will erase what I did. None of that will change the fact that I was willing to swallow the truth to maintain my comfort. That's the real horror of Helheim. It's not the flesh. It's not the magic. It's the human capacity to justify ourselves. It's our amazing ability to live with immorality while convincing ourselves we're doing the right thing. It's the contract we all sign every day when we choose not to know, when we choose not to see, when we choose not to question. It's the coward's contract. And all of us, in one way or another, have signed it. Brother, if you made it this far, it means Helheim touched your soul. It means you understood the true message. If someone you know needs to hear this story, share it. Subscribe to Vikingos del Horror channel so you never run out of stories that break you from the inside. Give it a like if you stayed awake thinking about the coward. And tell me in the comments. Have you also signed the contract without realizing it? That's all for today. Rest well if you can.